When I look back, I think there's one main driver I will mention as first thing. That is national collaboration. If you want success, have collaboration. I wrote down what Stan said. He said that we have no idea where we go. I fully agree. We don't know anything about this. What will be the future of the e-health solutions? What are the main trends that the MasterMind project can feedback on? And does the MasterMind project have to be one problem of all the megatrends? My first answer to that question is no. There have very recently been a new survey in the US showing that only half of all the new apps are actually being used. To being used, they have to be in connection with some healthcare professional and some providers. So, apps out in the space doesn't make any sense. For us, certainly, it's much more important that the healthcare professionals are using the services than being first movers on some very high-tech new services in a new megatrend. So again, there are situations where you don't have to follow megatrends and you don't have to be first movers. That's also very important for MasterMind to think about. It is important that a national or even international structure exists to support the rollout of an IT-based solution like MasterMind. It's really about having this overall backing, a supporting attitude, and the common strategy level that makes the services taps into something. Secondly, it is very important for the function of the services that there is homogeneity and that you have this culture of trust in the area where the services is to be implemented. And lastly, I believe that it is important to be aware of the megatrends I mentioned, that they shape the environment of those services like MasterMind or any even services.
The implementation of new techniques can be a real possible solution. But for this, it's necessary first to convince health practitioners to use new techniques. The first is that you talk on the 57 severe depression, but your focus was mild depression. The second question we would like to ask you is to tell that there is a large proportion without medication, without antidepressant medication. How the patient take at the same time relaxation technique. Another important thing is that 60% complete computer cognitive behavioral therapy, which is quite a lot. But nevertheless, it's 40% not. And why? And maybe you must ask yourself that there are many confusing factors that can overlap your work or can confuse your diagnosis. These overlapping factors are mental disorders, comorbidities. What we call neuropsychodevelopmental disorders, which is really very frequent, I think you must be aware of them. For example, learning disorders, dyslexia and all kinds of learning disorders. In other words, doesn't know that learning disorders, in other words, is one of the main factors for violence, for example. It's one of the main factors for mild depression, ADHD in others, attention deficit hyperactivity disorders in others, not in children. And it is also one of the main disorders inducing drug consumption, inducing depression, inducing vulnerability for a lot of mental processes, personality disorders. How do you control this? Because if you have not controlled this, maybe you are treating mild depression, and they were not mild depression. And the problem we have with these, all these neuropsychodevelopment disorders, is that all of them, they are the main vulnerability factors for cannabis consumption. And then cannabis consumption is another important issue that we must take into account.
I have three topics I would point to. The first is some comparisons with the I-5 depression. The second is a question about all the differences you have found between the countries and the teams, and then how to make it more sustainable in the future, some suggestions. I think about the IT solutions with a lot of problems we have. It's very, I can recognize that. But also the fact that we develop a tool for the teens, for the adolescents, and then we see that the public that uses it is not the adolescent groups, but the adults of 30 plus. And, but can we learn from that for our future plans? Also the question that was also tackled by the previous speaker about people with more severe depressions. In Flanders we have a project with primary care psychologists working in the general practice, and it's new. It was the intention to have them make short interventions. Our way of thinking on the differences between these types of pathology, of mental health problems, and should we think in another way? I saw many differences between the countries, between the teams, in the way you have realized an implementation. And that's what your project is about. That's what we want to learn, how we can be implement. And I think a lot of information might be in your results. Is the knowledge in all these teams and countries the same? Did you assess that? And are there relevant parts of knowledge that is not present or present in another way and makes it helping or just hindering that people implement such tool? The attitudes, of course. Then also or maybe they think that this is just for one type of population. Also the context in which people are more or just less able to change their habitual behavior. Another aspect I'm thinking about is the group of patients. What about the patients? Are they asking for this type of tool? Are they invited in an open way? In Flanders, I met by coincidence somebody from an organization that is offering on an insurance base help that is paid by employers. The employers are paying an insurance, and when something happens, most of all it is a real crisis, for example in a bank when there is a robbery, or when there is a train accident, or something like that, you can phone and then psychological help is coming immediately. But they also offer help for people who have burnout in the organizations. And so there are different formulas. The employer himself pays the insurance, but the employee doesn't have to pay anything. He receives this for nothing. And at the same time, I think that we should not forget the role of the patients in this, the users, the end users. And then I think at the literature on shared decision making and the use of decision aids and these devices in the field of oncology, there is a real evidence. And I would think that also in our field of e-mental health, it would be very helpful to have more e-mental health decision aids that are free, usable by the patients, and that give them some inspiration to ask questions to the caregivers and also to the governments. So I think if we want to have a more sustainable way of introducing these e-mental health tools, that we should not forget the public of end users.